Hi everybody, my name is Barry Rosen, and actually I was trying to show the video, but it's not. Okay, I'm going to temporarily unmute you all, and what I need to do is to then stay muted, so that it allows you to ask questions later. I don't know if this worked. Um, um, anyway, so I want to welcome you to our presentation today, Rahu and Ketu, Healing and Integrating the Karmic Axis. I'm Barry Rosen. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. One of my, Jamie Bateman is on the line, and she's going to give her the mic so that she can introduce herself. Before I do that, I usually start my classes with some chanting to settle the mind down. Here's my contact information. Let me tell you our upcoming class. It's starting on Saturdays, starting at March 30th. There's actually 10 people enrolled in the class already, which is great. I think Rahu and Ketu is quite an important subject, and with Rahu about to go into Gemini on March 7th in the True Node system, and Ketu into Sagittarius, you know, the nodes are in flux. Of kind of weird, distorted energies. I think people are feeling it, and I think a lot of people start calling in. They have big changes coming in their life, and they're not sure what to do. So it seems like doing this seminar this time is very timely. So I usually start with some chanting, and I'll do that while people are arriving. So usually chanting is done, you know, you can just listen with your eyes closed. Om Ganeshaya Namaha, Om Ganeshaya Namaha, Om Ganeshaya Namaha, Om Ganapatiye Namaha, Om Ganapatiye Namaha, Om Ganapatiye Namaha. Vakritunda Mahakaya, Surya Koti Samabraha, Nirvigam Kurame Deva, Sarvakareshi Sarvada. Jnanamulam Guru Murti, Pujamulam Guru Padam, Mantramulam Guru Vakyam, Mokshamulam Guru Kripa. Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahai Tejasvina Vatitamastu Ma Bibishai Vahai Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Aditaye Samaye Mangulai Buddhaye Cha Guru Shukra Shani Bascha Rahuve Ketave Namaha. We're honoring the great ones, Lord Krishna, Goddess Saraswati, Goddess of Wisdom, Vedavyasa, writer and cognizer of the Vedas, in my holy tradition going back to Brahmananda Saraswati. And I stand on the shoulders of many great Jyotish teachers, including Sanjay Rath, Camilla Sutton, and Bill Levacy, who I honor with my presentation. So my students, Jamie Bateman from Colorado, is going to come online for a second and just tell you a little bit about me. And now I am not seeing her on the list. Jamie, are you there? I think she had to get off. Okay, so I'll have to tell you a little bit about myself. So I've been involved in Vedic astrology since 1987, and I've been kind of actively teaching classes the last 3 or 4 years. I've written 3 books in the past year, and I've been I've kind of specialized in transits. Many of you know me from my transit classes and my blogs, because I've observed transits for how they impact the psychology and the emotions. And I'm always very kind of interested in seeing how we can get free of the emotional baggage and psychological baggage that the planets are weaving. So, you know, I always think that the planets are kind of like the puppeteers, and you know, the idea is to cut the puppet strings so that we're free. If we understand the emotional and psychological influence that the planets are causing, then we can step back. It's a jnana technique to the knowledge sheds light, and then we can be free of those disturbances a little bit. So that's kind of my orientation in Jyotish. I'm not into prediction. I'm seeing Jamie is back now. Jamie, do you want to let's see if I can make you. Jamie, I'm just going to Jamie's going to get on the line for a second and just tell you a little bit about me and what I do. And Jamie, are you there? Okay. Okay, so that's not working. Okay, Jamie, let me try it this way. Jamie's having trouble with her audio, so let me go back to me. Okay, so
I'm here now, Barry.
Oh, you're here now. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Jamie, can you all hear Jamie? Okay, so Jamie, why don't you? Actually I didn't. I think I have to make you the presenter again. So I just made you the presenter again. So go ahead. You there? When I make you the presenter, you're not there because you. Okay. Okay. So I'm gonna. I think we'll see if we can get Jamie on a little bit later. I'm not sure what's going on. We're having a little Rahu technological difficulty today, but so let me just continue a little bit. So what we're going to do today is get a little bit of an overview of Rahu and Ketu. This class is kind of I call it my first class is like the ocean in a drop. So I want to present some material from all 16 of my upcoming classes to give you an overview of kind of what we'll do and give you a deep overview of Rahu and Ketu, and maybe with a lot of deep insights. For those of you who don't know, anyway, I have written 3 books this year, Finding Your Blind Spots Using Astrology. It's available on my website and on Amazon. Spiritual, psychological, and emotional wisdom to help you understand your hidden flaws and unconscious patterns. That's kind of my orientation with Vedic astrology. We also have the Vedic Astrology Transit Guide, which is not an ephemeris. It's actually a detailed interpretation of the major transits of this year, and that's also available on my website. Part 1 is certainly out, and we have 5 or 6 articles on Saturn and Rahu and Ketu, and the Saturn Ketu conjunction, and Rahu and Ketu and Gemini and Sagittarius. So we have it organized by your rising sign and moon sign, so it's very in depth. So our class again is going to be 16 weeks, starting on March 30th, and we'll send you a copy of this video after class to re-listen to or share with others. And I kind of want to move into the main part of the presentation because there's always a lot of material. Okay. So sorry, introductions always take a little time. I apologize. So let's get into knowledge. So again, for this particular talk, I'm particularly grateful to Bill Levesey, Camilla Sutton, Prash Trivedi, and Ernst Wilhelm. Again, I always stand on the shoulders of many great teachers. I do have my own insights, and I weave the thoughts of others and my own thoughts together. Again, this class is kind of an ocean in a drop, and the class is the first 4 weeks of the upcoming class is going to cover Rahu and Ketu and depth, addictions, ethics, personality, karmic flaws and blind spots, mythology, archetypes. Some of that we'll see today. Then we'll go into sign placements, house placements, connections to the nakshatras, which cover the mental makeup. What happens when Rahu is associated with other planets? That happens a lot. It's very important. We have a lesson on Rahu and Ketu Dasha as a survival guide. Sometimes you can take 7 or 8 years to understand Rahu and Ketu Dasha, and sometimes you don't even understand it until the very end. So we need a lot of tips on getting through Rahu and Ketu Dashas for those of you who are in them. Also, a week on transits and eclipses. And then I've added a section on Rahu and Ketu's impact on health, relationship, and finance because they're huge, and maybe that'll even expand into 2 lessons because it's such an important topic. And then, even though sometimes what people don't realize, Rahu and Ketu are very important in the Varga charts, particularly the D9, which is the Navamsha chart, the D12, which is connected to the past and our parents, and the D60, which is also past lives. Basically Rahu and Ketu anywhere in the Varga charts can have a major impact on karma in those Vargas and those areas of life. And so we need to understand that. I'm currently teaching a Varga class now, and that's an important core issue of it. And then the title brings us to, once we understand everything, how do we heal Rahu and Ketu? We have to look at modern remedies and traditional remedies and put it all together. So I've changed the format of my class. They're actually 16-hour-and-a-half classes because sometimes we get Jyotish overload and trying more classes and less time to see if that helps with that issue. And the sign up for that is on my Applied Vedic Astrology site. Today's material is a little bit more abstract. I'm not going to bring in many case studies, or when I teach my classes, for those of you who study with me, if you give me your permission, I will illustrate the principles of the day in your chart. And so I'm very personal in my orientation. And Jyotish means light and shadow, so we're trying to throw light on the darkness. And so ultimately, Rahu and Ketu are the ultimate shadows that kind of block the light. And if we can free them, they should help us move toward moksha, which is my whole orientation with spiritual astrology. We need to kind of free ourselves from the shadows and the impulses that block the light in our lives, so that we can get enlightened. And so we need to see through Rahu and Ketu the mask and blind spots that are kind of gripping us. And I think Rahu and Ketu are particularly insidious, and they're so insidious we don't even understand how they show up sometimes, because they totally blind us. And then when we do see it, it's quite interesting. Just a note too, for the with questions, I will take pauses for questions. I'm going to have to. You're all muted at the moment, and I will have to unmute you when you have a question. It's hard for me to kind of moderate questions. I don't know if Jamie was going to help me moderate questions. I'm not sure she was able to stay. So I'll do my best to take questions and pauses. And there's a place on go to web, your hand, and I can mute your mic. And I'll see if I can unmute all your mics at some point so that you can ask questions. Okay. So we have to start with the Rahu Ketu mythology. So Swarbhanu, who was a demon, kind of tricked his way and wanted to become get the ambrosia of the sum of the gods so that he could be immortal. And he snuck in, and he became immortal, and he was a demon. And so Vishnu threw his discus and cut him in half and created Rahu and Ketu. And the sun and the moon kind of tattled on Swarbhanu and said, "You shouldn't be here." And so the mythology shows that the sun and the moon are the big enemies of Rahu and Ketu, because they tattled on him when he was getting the ambrosia. But because Rahu and Ketu had drunk the ambrosia, they're immortal. So part of the myth tells us that we need knowledge of the nodes to find the light, because the sun and the moon are the luminaries and they're most important planets, in the chart. And to kind of become the light and rediscover the light, we have to kind of understand how Rahu and Ketu block the light in our chart. The story is very kind of revealing, and it tells us a lot about Rahu and Ketu, because particularly Rahu, because one of the things is that the demon was kind of unethical. He was a thief. He kind of snuck in and somehow tricked his way into getting the immortal nectar of the god. And so part of the nature of Rahu is that he often represents gangsters and unethical behavior, because by nature he started out as a demon, kind of stealing things. He also Rahu was very ambitious, because the demon wanted to be immortal, and he had deep cravings, and so he kind of cheated his way into becoming immortal. And so Rahu has that kind of ambitious quality, stealing the light. And Rahu was also, he was a fake. He had to masquerade and pretend that he was a god so that he could get the immortal nectar, but he really wasn't a god. And deep down, he's a god. And so that is very revealing about the nature of Rahu, is that on some level he's still a little bit of a phony, and he pretends to be something that he's not. And these all kind of blend into the Rahu Ketu archetype. So the interesting thing about Rahu in modern life is that we like Rahu in India is very kind of it's the outsider. He's the part of the outcast. Rahu is because he's anti-traditional society in terms of not becoming a traditional Hindu and following the religious laws. Rahu is not fondly looked at in India, but in the West, Rahu has kind of a whole different milieu. I mean, our whole society is so centered around Rahu. We love shows like The Soprano, immigrants. We've got this immigrant crisis now, governs Rahu. Outsiders, rebels, rock stars. They all have very strong Rahu characters, and we're drawn to their charisma. I mean, one of the things about Rahu, particularly in the first house, or aspect in the first house, it creates very charismatic characters. Politicians have a lot of Rahu in them, and we're drawn to this kind of charismatic energy, which is somehow, and these people aren't always good. I mean, The Sopranos, at the end we feel sorry for the people who die in The Sopranos, but somehow we're endeared to them. So this is part of us that is kind of drawn to this kind of darkness, to our dark side, to our shadow, and it's an immortal part of us, and to kind of bring light to it, we have to really dig deeply and shed light on it if we don't want to have the deep suffering that Rahu and Ketu ultimately bring. So to me, it's always this irony that we're drawn to all the Rahu characters, the people on TV, and the people in the cinema. The South, Rahu rules the Southwest, and so what's in the Southwest? We've got Los Angeles is the Southwest part of the United States, and so it's not a surprise that most of what Hollywood turns out Rahu material. It's always about we love watching these stories about bad guys and unethical people and things like that. I mean, Hollywood rarely puts out movies about teachers. I mean, I remember To Sir with Love, which was a wonderful movie with Sidney Poitier playing a high school teacher. People, people are more drawn to Rahu than they are to Jupiter. And to me that's kind of fascinating. And the U.S. has been in a Rahu period since 2015, and so Rahu governs technology. And we have this huge technological blast happening, but technology is a problem too. We're about to, push into 5G, and which is shown to be very damaging on the health level. And so technology side, and we're here today from all over the world in this class because of technology, but But the dark side of technology is also there with Rahu. It causes health problems. It has our children watching their cell phones and not talking to each other. So it's quite fascinating. So modern life is so colored by Rahu, and we can't avoid. Rahu and Ketu, I always like to use the expression that only the shadow knows. In Jungian psychology, it represents that kind of dark, hidden side of us, and I think something I want to talk a lot about today, because our subconscious psychological patterns sometimes blind us and block our light, and we develop all kinds of compensation patterns to prevent the light from shining through, and we become phony and false people. So basic understanding of the nodal axis is that Rahu represents our desires and ambitions in this life, and Ketu our struggles we bring in from the past. So that's one simple way of representing Rahu. Wherever Rahu is placed, it represents what we desire most in life, and Ketu represents kind of the baggage from the past. I've got Rahu in the second in the life, and it draws me toward craving family love, which I didn't get, and toward finance, because Rahu is in the second house. So whatever house Rahu is in is where our primary desire in life is. So Rahu and Ketu show the strongest push toward our goals in life, and then our baggage from the past. And the houses, suns, and nakshatras tell us more about that journey, and that's what we have to study to get very specific information. Rahu and Ketu creates this need for spiritual comfort by creating, one of three things: compulsions. Again, Rahu is ambitious. Discontent, wherever Ketu is, we feel lack there. There's some lack there, and it pushes us to. Ketu always pushes us toward moksha, toward spirituality. If he's discontent with the material world, Rahu is blinded by the material world and wants more and more and is never satisfied. Rahu and Ketu often create radical and uncontrollable change. Spelling here. So Rahu and Ketu are the central driving force in our evolutionary existence. They create the drive for what we want to become and healing the past, and ultimately we've got to become free of the attachments of Rahu and Ketu. So Rahu, the thing is, Rahu creates compulsion. So often it leads to addiction. Sometimes, we'll have a section on addiction in one of our first classes. Rahu conjunct Venus. Venus is sensual addiction. Often Rahu, Venus, depending on the signs and placement in the chart, can create a sexual addiction and create something that's out of the person's control. And we have a huge problem with addiction in our society today, because people can't deal with the emotional traumas from the past, and they seek ways of covering up their emotions, and ultimately we have to be comfortable with our emotions. And Ketu is often connected to rehabilitation. Meditation is connected to Rahu, and so it's interesting that meditation, rehabilitation, the opposite of Rahu, are the cure for addiction. So Ketu creates discontent due to the old and familiar, and Rahu creates discontent for the possibility of being as good as we would have wished it. So the thing about Rahu, when you're in a Rahu period, it's never enough. It's never good enough. I mean, whatever you attain, whether it's money or you want fame or you want recognition at work or you want the ultimate relationship, even when you get it, and Rahu will give it to you, you're not happy. It's discontent, because Rahu has this insatiable desire. He's the insatiable demon. He wants more and more and more. No matter how much money or food or love you get, it's not enough when Rahu is ruling. And Ketu creates discontent. It's just like we want to leave the world. We want to go to the ashram. We want to meditate. We just, wherever Ketu is placed, we just kind of want to give it up. Ultimately, dreams are always better than reality until, of course, the world is seen as a dream, and that's ultimately where we have to go with healing Rahu and Ketu. So this Rahu and psychology is interesting. So Rahu is connected to kind of phoniness, false identities, masking of patterns we don't want others to see about us. We need to tell the truth in order to reveal this. Now, I want to talk about this a little bit because it's quite revealing, and I've really been thinking about this week. Usually where Rahu is, there's some kind of some phoniness about it. And see, it goes back to the mythology. Rahu, became a god, but he isn't really a god. And so inside he doesn't feel good enough. And so there's this kind of phoniness wherever Rahu is in the chart, because on some level we pretend we're a god, but we're not a god. And so when we look at the areas of our life where Rahu is not go through that, you can see that we're kind of projecting these false masks, these false identities. And everybody wants authenticity. And we meet a lot of phony people in the world, and often it's this kind of Rahu projection. But we love people who are authentic and tell us the truth. And I think one of the reasons the Me Too movement has been so popular is because these women have been kind of exposing their deepest fears about what has happened to them, and then the truth is coming out, and we all love the truth. And it's kind of this, Rahu predator energy is kind of unmasked, or this victim energy is kind of let go of, and it's very powerful. But what happens is that Rahu system and compensation patterns, and it's so. If you really start unraveling the way Rahu is connected in your chart through the nakshatras and signs and the houses and the planets it's connected to, you start seeing all these kind of compensation patterns. I mean, think about Rahu and Ketu maybe in the first or the seventh houses in Taurus or Libra, particularly for women who might feel deep inside they may not feel that they're beautiful enough. So they're always, working on becoming more beautiful. And sometimes people in that situation will have a lot of plastic surgery. They don't like their nose. They don't like their neck. They don't like, something. And it's this perpetual dissatisfaction with themselves. And it creates, and then they try to kind of mask it by getting plastic surgery and becoming something that they're not, and hoping that they'll feel better about themselves. But, in reality, they're still, you can make those changes on the surface, but if you within with the self-love and uncovering the energy making you from feeling good about yourself, then it doesn't matter. Ketu often kind of holds on to the past with rigidity, and it needs to loosen up. I mean, Ketu gets stuck in the past, and for my spiritual teachers, obviously we have to live in the present moment. When we're usually like thinking life will be better in the future. I'll be happy when I get X number of dollars in the bank, or I'll be happy when I meet my soulmate. I'll be happy when I get promoted at work. And, all those things happen, and we're still not happy. So we're always in the future. We're always craving more, and we're always in the future. K2 is always regretting the past. Something has happened to all of us when we were children, and we were damaged, and we never have gotten through it, unless you had an ideal childhood. And we're still somehow compensating issues that happen there, and we're stuck in the past, and sometimes our whole life becomes this tale of like compensating for these hurts from the past, and it leaves us wounded. So we have to kind of move into the present moment with truth in order to kind of heal. So for those of you who've studied with me, I find that there are kind of sometimes you get ideal situations in Jyotish. You'll get Jupiter and Pisces in the 9th house or something like that, and there's no aspects to it, and it's in a good nakshatra and stuff like that. But inevitably, when you look and you study Jyotish and you see different areas of the chart, you see there's always some type of affliction. It's not placed in the Vansha chart well. There's some aspect there that's kind of marring it. For example, I have Mars and Aries in the 6th, which is considered a good placement, but it's it's got an exalted Saturn in Libra aspecting it. It's in a nakshatra ruled by Venus, which owns the 7th and the 12th house. It's in Virgo Navamsha, which is an enemy. So, if you looked at my Mars in the 6th in Aries, you'd say, "Oh my God, you're so, And I have a lot of Mars in the 6th Aries qualities that are positive, but they're not without we call them doshas or their afflictions. So there's always some doshas. So, when I teach the class, I'll teach you the ideal. Get a strong placement. I mean, Rahu is strong in Aquarius, which is where it is co-owner of. It's very happy in Gemini and Virgo. And if there are no negative aspects to it, and if it's in the right nakshatras and it's well placed in the Navamsha chart, most of you can have a positive Rahu sometimes, and a positive Rahu at best is really materially successful. And maybe extremely inventive and very creative. Rahu is very creative. One of the positive things that gets missed about Rahu, he's very creative, and we need creative energy in our life. We admire rock stars because they're so creative with music. We admire inventors because they create incredible technology. Aquarius is very connected to technology. So there are times that Rahu is unafflicted and in a really good place in the chart, and it does well in the 3rd, 6th, 10th, and 11th houses. But in my mind, malefics always cause problems, and there are always some problems. And to me, keywords to remember about Rahu is that it creates confusion, it creates pretense, it creates masking and phoniness. So if you have Rahu in the 1st house, there's a sense of false, and again, I'm looking at the darker side of Rahu now. Again, it is possible to have, a very strong Rahu in the 1st house, and but there's always some shadow there. I mean, with Rahu, it's just by nature, it's shadow. So Rahu in the 1st house can create a false self, someone who's confused as to who they are, and they can project all kinds of false personae. And, the interesting thing is, Rahu by nature kind of creates confusion. And so some people don't know who they are, and Rahu in the 1st, they create all these kind of false masks, and they're not authentic. You meet people with Rahu in the 1st house, you don't really trust them. You don't know who they are because they're on some level they project. We're attracted to these people. They have a lot of charisma. They have a lot of energy and a lot of creativity, and so many people in Hollywood and in the music scene have Rahu in the 1st house. We'll have case studies when we do the class. And but these people, underneath, you read the tabloids, and these people have drug addictions, and they have major relationship problems, and they're not happy. I mean, the people were attracted to Rahu in the 1st house, but these people often inside don't feel good. So there's a false self underlying it there. Rahu in the 2nd house may be a false sense of family appearance, or pretending to manage money but having no idea how to. So in I have Rahu in the 2nd house, and my dad is a Holocaust survivor, and he became an Orthodox Jew later in life, and partly through my doing. I got my family back into Judaism when I was a teenager. But when I talk to my dad, and he has this whole pretense about my whole family has this whole pretense about being. It's showing that I'm getting audio problems. Sometimes it means I have to close additional programs. Just a second, because I have to make sure that nothing else is on. Don't know why the internet is. Okay, it's gone. I'm sorry. Okay, I hope there were no audio problems. Who in the 2nd house? So in my family, my dad is an Orthodox Jew on the outside, but if you talk to him, he's really not into it. And he said, he when my mom passed away, the Orthodox Jewish families in the neighborhood would take care of him and bring him food, and he needed that. He needed their love and support. So he kind of pretend to be, really into Judaism, but he's really not. and other people in my family have a little bit like that too. You know, they're really into it on a rote level, but you know, on an emotional, devotional level, they're not quite there. So to me, that's kind of, and I've got Rahu and Sagittarius, which is the religious sign, so that's why I'm talking about it. But so it can be kind of a phoniness there sometimes. Rahu in the third house can create intellectual restlessness and not feeling smart enough. So you try too hard to succeed. You know, the third house gets misunderstood a lot. The third house is connected to the kind of primal mind, the Freudian id, often strong violence or, you know, our kind of aggressive energy. It's ruled by Mars. Our sexual natural third sign of the zodiac is Mituna, connected, which means copulation and translate the Sanskrit. So third house is a very sexual primal house actually, and that's why it's not just communications and brothers, but it you know, Rahu in there can be a little, if afflicted, can be a little bit out of control, can be too aggressive, and intellectually restless and not feeling smart enough. So they try too hard to succeed and they often fail. So it's kind of there's a lot of problems with Rahu in the third house, even though, you know, the classics will tell you Rahu in the third house is a good placement. Well, it's you can overcome and when you have a malefic in a Upachaya house like the third, sixth, or the, you know, eighth house, you can sometimes overcome the problems of Rahu more easily, but it's not like you're not going to have problems. Rahu in the fourth house is a false about feelings in the heart level, about what you feel and what you express. So, you know, Rahu and, you know, it's also Rahu in Cancer, you know, natural fourth sign of the zodiac. There's a sense of, you know, my mom was like this. You know, you would ask her how she was feeling, and she'd say, "Oh, everything's fine," and she would say it with this tone, like with bitter angerness. You know, so people who are inauthentic about their feelings and are false about how they feel are, you know, have that kind of a problem of feeling emotion. You know, and Rahu, you know, Rahu doesn't do well with emotion. So you put Rahu in Cancer, you put Rahu in the fourth house. It's not happy with domestic life, not doing well. Rahu in the fifth house is projecting, you know, this fifth house is about self-expression. You know, it's our hobbies, our sports, it's romance, it's, you know, drama, it's mantras, it's our children, it's our self-expression. And people with Rahu in the fifth house may be false in their expression, and you know, maybe false in romantic relationships, or, you know, pretending to be very involved in something but not really being involved in it. Rahu in the sixth house is, again, considered a good placement traditionally, but it brings material struggles and problems. Again, I'm assuming this is the darker part of Rahu in the sixth house, which is usually what you're going to get. You get material struggles and problems and complaining about them due to maybe problems with health or work. You may be a hypochondriac or prone to impatience with your struggles, and you may feel victimized by other people competing with at work. And so, you know, with Rahu in the sixth, you often have the ability to get through these problems, but you know, the dark side of it is that you may be, you know, very, you know, false and blind to the way you show up with, you know, being, you know, always complaining about what's going on with work and how people are like sniping at you, or always complaining about your health and stuff like that. Rahu in the seventh house is the house of relationship and business relationship. False relationships. You may be a pleaser or a doer or codependent in relationships. You may be sexually out of balance. And that sometimes it can go both ways with Rahu and Ketu and sex, because it's, you know, either it's obsessive sex or it's like celibacy sometimes. You may seem like you have a great marriage, but secretly you're having affairs. Rahu in the seventh often, you know, leads to kind of affairs in relationships. So again, there's some phoniness about relationship when it's in the seventh. Rahu in the eighth is considered one of the more difficult placements, because the eighth house is connected to the natural eighth sign like Scorpio, where this is kind of deep psychological swamp. And you can't get a handle on the eighth house because it's like deep unconscious fears and phobias. And what happens when you have malefics in the eighth house, particularly Rahu, is that people get into addictive patterns because they can't deal with the deep emotion and psychology of the eighth house and the garbage that rolls up. So you end up being, sometimes Rahu in the eighth house creates abusers and abused victims and perpetrators. Very kind of common with that. Often, eighth house is kind of hidden. There's an inner shyness which Rahu naturally has anyway, and lack of confidence is common. But then we overcompensate with that with a false mask. So Rahu tends to kind of, can project a lot of bravado, but inside he feels worthless. And that's part of the mythology, the god who is really not a god. He's a phony, and he has to kind of do all kinds of crazy things to kind of cover up who he really is. So there's a lot of unconscious fears and phobias with Rahu in the eighth house, and people usually don't know what to do with it. The key with anything in the eighth house is meditation. The eighth house also governs the transcendent realm and the mystical realm. And if you get people who have eighth house problems into meditation, that will usually handle it. Ninth house, Rahu in the ninth house, false about religion and spirituality, but possibly excessive like the fundamentalists. And you look at, I think I was looking at Billy Graham's chart. I have to remember and pull that up, but I think he's got Rahu in the ninth house. It's kind of, a great man on some level, but there's also this kind of excessive energy about a religion somehow. But it's not really valid when we look at. It'd be interesting to do a study of all these kind of fundamentalist churches and these television evangelists, because there's something totally phony about what they create in religion. And sometimes people with Rahu in the ninth have trouble with luck, following a spiritual path. Rest they have trouble with meditation sometimes, and they may blend into spiritual groups in a false way. You get people that get into cults and are into kind of spiritual groups and things like that, but they're not real sometimes. It's kind of interesting. Rahu in the 10th house, also considered a good placement, because it can elevate your career, but sometimes it'll elevate it and it'll quickly kind of pull you down. It can create charismatic leadership, but in the end, sometimes these people really don't know how to work with others. I've seen a number of people with Rahu in the 10th house, and you get to know them, and they're, a good leader gets in the trenches and works with his people. I mean, that's what I learned in my leadership studies. The leader should never be separate from his people. He has to be working with them when they have problems. You have to get in the ditches and solve the problems with them, and that's what good leaders do. A Rahu in the 10th leader, just like says, well, that's your problem. You figure it out. So there's a kind of they're not connected to reality at work. So there's kind of a phoniness about it. They may seem like a great person at work, but they're not there. So there's kind of a false reputation that's vulnerable to fall. And then Rahu in the 11th house, phoniness with groups and friends, or you maybe have phony or inauthentic friends, or it's also the 11th house is connected to long-term goals, so you may not be clear on what you want. So 11th house is also a health house. We can talk about that more when we get into the course. 12th house is another difficult placement for Rahu. False ability to surrender. Now, the 12th house people don't understand well enough. It's often about marriage. Actually, it's about the sacrifice we do in marriage to raise kids, and it's actually one of the marriage houses. And there's a Rahu in the 12th house is going to have a false ability to kind of surrender and sacrifice in marriage, or sacrifice in a service organization or a charity organization. Rahu in the 12th may create a phony sex life that drives you to seek new adventures, but brings little satisfaction. Again, Rahu prays but never gets enough. And there may often Rahu in the 12th, like Rahu in the 8th, there's deep secrets in the 8th and the 12th house, and so we can't deal with them, and we mask them and hide them. Maybe we're hiding business failures or sexual adventures or unethical activity. So Rahu in the 12th house is kind of a difficult placement. So that's the psychology of Rahu in the 12th. Now, I don't have time. I want to give you a taste of the whole course. So I'm not going to do all the Ketu slides. But Ketu, Ketu has a dark side often also, unless it's in Pisces or Scorpio or Sagittarius. And it likes Leo, actually, because the sun, Ketu is a card for promotion. The sun is connected to the divine and divinity. And so Ketu does it well in Leo. It's okay in Aries even. Um, but and we want Ketu to be connected to Jupiter. Most of the planets really don't do well with Ketu. Jupiter kind of can really uplift Ketu. So for the most part, you can have a strong Ketu in your chart. You've got Ketu in Pisces or Ketu in Scorpio, and it's unafflicted, and there are no, aspects from Mars or Saturn or something like that. But for the most part, it'll be in Mars's nakshatra, it'll be in Saturn's nakshatra. Well, there'll be something that's kind of tinging it. So there's always something there, and like finding a purely bright planet is tricky. But Ketu, Ketu is a wonderful planet. Ketu can be rigid and inflexible, often stuck in the past. I always like to use the word invisible with Ketu. I think particularly, people, when Ketu shows up, people don't see the real person. They're kind of invisible. Ketu in the first, sometimes, they're so shy inside. Sometimes they project that shyness, and they don't show up in a crowd. You don't know they're there. I often see that with Ketu in the first, and sometimes that's due to a lack of confidence. Ketu often feels. I always like to use the word lack of confidence with Ketu because it kind of, it's Rahu and Ketu both have the same kind of quite, not good enough energy. Ketu may sometimes project it in a different way than Rahu. And Rahu and Ketu always go together, but in a sense, Ketu always has that lack of confidence energy also. And I always like to use the phrase, Ketu creates a black hole wherever it goes. I just think it's, wherever you have Ketu in your chart, you're just not sure what to do with that house that Ketu's in. There's just a lot of problems with that house. You just don't know. And they're kind of like hard to figure out, and they're kind of mysterious, and you can't quite figure out why you keep having these problems wherever you have Ketu. So it's kind of like a black hole. You can't quite, or a wormhole. You can't quite get a handle on what's going on there, and you just have, outwardly you have all these problems with it, but you don't know what to do with it. So Ketu in the first house can have a controlling, uptight personality because inside it feels out of control. That can be a compensation pattern with Ketu. Always wanting to change everything is a real problem with Ketu. Ketu is very restless. It wants to kind of change everything. And you get into a Ketu period, you could be changing jobs quite a bit. You can be changing relationships quite a bit. You're just never quite happy. You just want to kind of dump everything. And Ketu is good at kind of, it wants moksha, so it says, let's get rid of the material, let's dump everything. Ketu can be very impatient and hypersensitive in the first house too. And Ketu in the first house is filled with surprises in life, close to others' advice. They know everything. They're a little bit rigid. They think they know everything, and that way they can be a little bit fundamentalistic also. Ketu in the first house can develop undiagnosed diseases that mask complex personalities not wanting to be in the material world. So, when we talk about the health section, Ketu and Rahu often create undiagnosable diseases in people. I'm in a Rahu period, and sometimes you have things and you go to the doctor and they can't figure out what it is, and you spend months and you still have the symptoms, and ultimately it's masking some quality of your personality that wants to be healed that you've got to kind of dig into to kind of discover. Ketu in the second house is going to create erratic ups and downs in finances, broken family relationships, can't hold on to money, problems with food addictions and obsessions. Bulimia is you can find bulimia as patients with Ketu in the second house. They just have this incredible, or they're obsessed with food. Put Rahu and Ketu in the second, eighth axis. You get food money obsessions and addictions, and you spend your life trying to unweave it, and usually it's connected to family because the family didn't take care of you properly, and so you cover it up with food, and there's never enough food to cover up the lack of family love. We'll spend 2 weeks talking about more of these. I can't give you the whole course in this one talk, otherwise we won't get a preview of all the other wonderful things. So the key with Rahu and Ketu is that Rahu has to be authentic and tell the truth and let go of the mask. And that's really hard for people. And to me, when we look at the Me Too movement, all these brave women coming forward and saying I was abused, and saying, and putting people like Weinstein in jail, is a way of kind of like, but usually we have something that's wounded us and we hide it, and we may hide it for 30 or 40 years. You've got this whole pedophile scandal in the Roman Catholic Church. They're finally coming out, and the Pope's, I think this week said that these people are going to be banished, and for the longest time they kind of covered them up, and they pretended it wasn't happening, but Rahu has to get to we have to get to the truth and be authentic, and it's ugly, because we don't want people to find out our guilty secrets or what happened to us, or what we did, and we're all kind of holding on to this kind of pyramid of compensation patterns that kind of blocks our truth from unfolding. And so we have to learn to take off the mask, because ultimately if we don't, then there's so many parts of us that just kind of fall apart, because Rahu and Ketu can only pretend to be gods for so long and keep so we have to, and Ketu has to loosen up and relax. It gets too rigid. It has to kind of not get so stuck into things being a certain way. And those are very key to healing Rahu and Ketu. Okay, I don't know what's going on here. So let me just take a sip of water. I will see if I can look at questions. I have trouble with the questions. Somebody asked about the Brigu Bindu destiny point. I don't have an answer on that. Wonderful question. I can research that. I don't study Brigu. I don't know. Actually, I know very little Brigu astrology, so I don't have an answer about that. Very, very interesting. Okay.
Barry?
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Diana.
Yes. You mentioned your Rahu in the second house and the issue with your family that, they portray themselves as religious, but you were talking about then how will you think that Rahu manifests in your life? Because if Rahu is not real, how do you think that it shows in your life?
Yeah, in my life, I've spent a lot of time, a lot of my life has been learning about, can you mute yourself, Diana?
Oh, yeah.
So a lot of my life has been kind of, I have a very kind of spiritual heritage with Ketu in the 8th house. And part of my drive in life was has had a kind of a more material orientation with learning to live in the material world and to be involved with finance. And so I spent a lot of time studying finance, and on some level I'm still kind of not a master of finance. And I've learned a lot of it, and personally, and personally in my life, I'm not a master of finance. So that's how it's kind of manifested in my life. I haven't, I'm still dealing with a lot of mistakes from the past that I've made in finance. And while I've gotten to a reality point with finance, I used to have a problem with credit card debt. And what I did a couple of years ago is I cut up all my cards. I got on the phone with them and I said, get rid of the interest, get rid of the the late fees. I want to pay these off. And I got real about it. And for a long time, I just lived. I had a lot of good karma with money. I had a lot of credit, and I ran up a lot of debt. And then now I've had to kind of face the reality of it's all illusion. Debt is particularly an illusion, particularly with credit card debt. And I've had to kind of get real about it and say, I'm not using credit cards anymore. I'm going to I'm going to live on a cash basis. I'm going to pay off these cards, and I'm never going to use them again because they there's this whole maya that the banks create about it. So that's how it's going to manifest in my life around finance. Thank you. Good question. Okay. So Rahu and Maya, and we're just talking about Maya. So Rahu perverts the moon, and hence it creates hallucination, illusion, and paranoia. I mean, to me, it's interesting if you study mental health in Vedic astrology, you find it's usually Rahu and Ketu connected to the moon that are going to cause, serious problems with mental health. But it happens to all of us on a minor level. If you have it in your natal chart, delusion and hallucination. And so people usually can't deal with Rahu moon connections, and they get involved in drugs, and if they're lucky they find spirituality so that they can dissolve the ego. Rahu can create kind of cloudiness and confusion and vagueness, so it is connected to delusions and psychoses and things like that. And when it's really afflicted and afflicting a chart in a certain way, it can lead to suicide or homicide. It just blocks clarity about what is right and wrong. These are kind of the extreme. Sometimes people, like, I've got a whole group of friends who just love studying criminals in Vedic astrology. I'm not interested in studying the darkest people in society. Inevitably, there's a lot of Rahu there. I'm more interested in studying the saints. But that's me. That's my Ketu. But Rahu is there also. But we have to remember, when we go into a Rahu period, or Rahu goes over our ascendant, or Rahu impacts our ascendant lord or something, it can create cloudiness and confusion, and we have to understand what's going on with it. And even now, the nodes are transiting. If you read my article yesterday on my blog about Sandhi nodes, there's just a lot of confusion going on now as they're getting ready to transit into a new place. The nature of Rahu is shadow. Sometimes it creates a demented mind, a mentally deranged. It destroys the light, and at best it can be material. If you have a strong Rahu in Taurus and it's unafflicted, it's in a good house, maybe, like, it may create a lot of material abundance for you, but you're not happy with it. And our whole society, I was at the dentist and they had the Price is Right on, and the people scream, over the new car, and that whole part of our society is very phony. And then you read studies of people who won the lottery and bought all these things and eventually kind of lose all their money because it doesn't create happiness. Rahu can often represent an inflated ego, and Ketu an insecure ego, and I think that's a really important thing to remember about Rahu and Ketu. Inflated ego people are charismatic, and sometimes we're drawn to them, and then we kind of really want to run away from them. And Ketu people, often have this insecure ego. I'm not good enough. I'm not enough. And it blocks them from moving forward in their life. And so you really often have to translate Rahu and Ketu from that kind of vantage point. But people with big egos are compensating for deep insecurities. And the bigger the outward compensation, probably the deeper insecurity. And you study these famous people, and you study their childhood, and they may be incredibly outwardly successful, and you see that they all had very difficult and humble beginnings that kind of compensating for, and no amount of money that they make can kind of take care of that loss. Rahu people tend to fall into the trap of overestimating their abilities. In other words, Rahu's problem is that he's too ambitious. And I'm in a Rahu period now. I've written 3 books this year, and it's not enough, and they're not good enough, and I've got 3 more books planned. But that's just kind of this Rahu obsession. I've got Rahu and Ketu's nakshatras, so I'm obsessed with astrology. And actually, if I really think about it, it's really kind of out of control. And so it's kind of, my students love it, and stuff like that, but it has kind of overtaken my life and created an imbalance. And so you have to kind of remember that Rahu kind of tends to kind of, make you too overly optimistic, and drives you too hard. Ketu people tend to underestimate their skills, so they may actually have hidden talents, but you don't see them manifesting it, because if they feel inside that they're not good enough, they're not going to go out and do those great things. So Rahu and Ketu blind us to the future bind us to, this actually should be bind us to, no, actually this is from my blind spot thing, of course. Rahu can blind us to the future, that we are always looking ahead and that we're blind to what's in front of us. So again, I was talking about the future and the past. And with Rahu, we're you know, it's going to be so great when I, you know, do this, that, and the other. Rahu pushes us into the future. Now, it may be a good thing. It may create material success for us. And Rahu has a good side in being able to do that for us. But it's never enough. Ketu causes the most problems if we're stuck in the past, we're not able to move forward. And, you know, Ketu in the second house, which is the house of family, usually if it's afflicted, we often find Ketu in the second house. People have a very difficult childhood. And my wife has Ketu in the second house. And her mother was emotionally and physically abusive to her because she was overweight. And, you know, it developed into massive eating problems. And she's still doing it with it because Ketu can really get us stuck in the past. But see, Rahu has this kind of expansive quality. It's a little like Jupiter and Venus. It likes growth and expansion, and you know that's why it does good with the material signs of Taurus and the Earth signs. It likes Libra particularly too. It does well with Gemini and Virgo because it creates brilliant intellectual people. But Rahu always expands, and it's quite wonderful in that way. But Rahu creates addictions. I've got additions here. Addictions. And because it creates a you know, the thing about Rahu and Ketu, you know, they often, you know, are caused, you know, there's swampy unconscious patterns going on there, and we don't, if we can't get a handle on what they are, then we, you know, our society has taught us to be uncomfortable with our emotions, so we cover them up. And so what happens is we have problems. So Rahu Venus connections, that could be Rahu and Taurus, Rahu and Libra, Rahu conjunct Venus, Rahu aspecting Venus. You know, with you know, you can get sex and food addictions, obsessions with marriage and women. Rahu moon connections, phobias leading to addictions and often leading to alcohol or drug problems. There's a quest for happiness. You know, moon is the karaka for happiness. Rahu's kind of like eating it up, and so when we're not happy, we try to find happiness in substances, and it doesn't work. Rahu Sun, power and fame. You know, most politicians have Rahu Sun connections or Rahu Moon connections. They want power and fame, and inevitably Rahu brings scandal and brings them down because of fear of failure. Rahu Mercury, phobias and mental imbalances, lack of confidence, depression can lead to addiction. I've got more, and I've got a whole section on addiction in the course, but I just want to give you a slide from that. I talk more about Rahu than Ketu, and maybe that's because I'm in a Rahu period at the moment. I am ruled by Ketu. Scorpio rising is the co-ruler of Ketu, and Aquarius rising is the co-ruler of Rahu. And very often, and maybe even half or more than half the time, Rahu is the ruler of Aquarius and Ketu is the ruler of Scorpio. And in my chart, Ketu is the ruler of Scorpio, not Mars. So when you, but I have the stereotype. I call it the Ketu type. Now the Ketu type can be, and we also have the Rahu type, which you could substitute here. So if you have Ketu in the first house, or Rahu in the first house for the Rahu type, or Ketu conjunct the sun or the moon, which, you know, is very important, or Ketu conjunct the ascendant lord, it can create a strong Ketu type person. If you're Scorpio rising, your Ketu can be a very important planet in your chart. Maybe the ruler of the chart, as in my case. And Ketu in the 12th actually creates kind of a Ketu type person. So what is the Ketu type person like? They usually have a lot of fire energy because Ketu is considered like Mars. It does have, it usually has repressed fire energy that explodes. Ketu can create independent thinkers fixated on a cause, sometimes rebels. Rahu and Ketu always go together in that way. Ketu people can't handle criticism and get defensive. Now, I have a horrible time with criticism, and I'm putting together this slideshow. I was kind of realizing that it's because I'm a Ketu type. I'm ruled by Ketu. I can't handle criticism. I get really defensive, and my wife hates it. Ketu people are filled with self-doubt and self-destruction because Ketu is trying to negate stuff. So you have to really get a hold of that energy and to heal it. Ketu is very connected to astrologers, to psychics, to higher yogis. So it has, on the bright side, it has that, particularly if it's in the right signs, it has that higher energy. And Ketu is there to help us transcend ego. So to transcend, Rahu creates that false ego that overcompensate. Ketu wants to pull that away and transcend ego to bring us to moksha. Ketu people still kind of can suffer from anxiety, self-doubt, self-effacement, self-martyrdom, shyness, insecurity, and gullibility. I mean, those are all things that many of us are plagued with. I mean, and these Ketu problems can show up in transit. Ketu goes over your ascendant. Ketu goes over conjunct your natal chart lord. Suddenly you get these problems coming up: anxiety, self-doubt, self-effacement, self-martyrdom, wanting to go into a cave, wanting to leave work, wanting to kind of go to the ashram, wanting to go, just meditate all the time. And it becomes overly impressionable and receptive too. Ketu is a little bit kind of like Mercury in that respect. It just kind of accommodates too much. It kind of doesn't become its true self. It kind of gives in to those around it. But eventually it gets resentful and impulsive and it explodes. I mean, one of the things that happens with Ketu is that it explodes after a while because it has that kind of Mars fire energy in it, and it'll stay repressed for a long time, and then it explodes, and you don't know where that shy person was when they suddenly scream at you. Ketu people on the high side can be very generous, compassionate, surrendered, devoted to spirit. Again, Ketu, if you have Ketu with Jupiter in your chart, which I do, or if you have Ketu unafflicted in Scorpio or Sagittarius or Pisces, very powerful for being a spiritual person without the dark side of Ketu. Ketu, but can get caught in fanaticism. Now, we're going to see a lot of this happening with Ketu going into Sagittarius, which is the natural ninth house of the zodiac, which is a fanatical sign by nature. And so Ketu going in there is going to suddenly create more fanaticism. And so, and people who are fanatical are pretty blind to it because it's like, we're the only way. We had 9/11 happen during Ketu and Sagittarius. The terrorists thought they were, in their view of God and Allah as everything, was enough to kind of blow up the trade towers, because they get this blind ambition. Ketu has kind of this irrationality that eventually leads to higher wisdom. Ketu isn't very smart because he's kind of headless. He's intuitive, and so when Ketu dominates you, and Ketu doesn't do well in Gemini and Virgo because those are intellectual signs. Ketu really needs to kind of rely on its intuition. Ketu types can be chaotic and disorderly, sometimes filled with surprises. Again, higher intuition is there. And Ketu can be cruel. Hitler, unfortunately, I never like to bring up his chart. I think he has Ketu conjunct Mars in the third house, if I remember, in Sagittarius. And, it's war-inflicting. I think he has a Libra rising. Mars is a particularly terrible planet for Libras, but he used that really dark side of Mars and the Ketu fanaticism to create a lot of destruction. Higher aspect of Ketu, we look at Mother Teresa's chart when we look at examples in selfless service. So, there's a big difference between Ketu in the third for Hitler and Ketu in the 12th for Mother Teresa. There's a whole gamut of light and dark in any planetary situation. Ketu and blind spots. So Ketu is kind of headless, so it's impulsive and it's unconscious. It's just not in the world. I mean, I'm ruled by Ketu. My wife just kind of is amazed how I leave things on the counter and don't put away things, and I'm not even aware I didn't do it. And it drives her crazy. But it's kind of that unconscious part that is just kind of headless. It's not kind of in the world sometimes. It's in the transcendent. The dark side of Ketu can lead to morbid suspicion, sadism, and amorality. I have a good Ketu, so I always see Ketu in a very positive light. But when you get afflicted Ketus by Saturn and Mars, and in the wrong signs, I mean, Ketu can be a bearer. It can even lead to obsession with eroticism, violence, horror, loss of moral values and depravity. So Ketu, even being the most spiritual planet ruling moksha, I have a lot of friends who are in have strong Ketus. I don't see the dark side of Ketu when I do people's charts, but it does exist. In the class, we'll look at some case studies. Ketu is the most psychic planet. It can give rise to fears and phobias in unnatural mental states. Same thing like Rahu. It can cause mental illness. One of the problems is that Ketu is connected to the spirit world. So sometimes you get people who channel and they get out of balance from channeling less than higher entities, and then they get kind of, caught up in this stalk, ghosty, paranoid world. It's a problem. So Rahu and Ketu are the two big weavers of illusions. I mean, this is from my blind spots class. Rahu's got the blind ambition. It's a good word for Rahu, and unethical behavior will do anything to get to the top. And that's an important part of Rahu. We learned it in the myth of the demon. The demon stole the nectar so he could be immortal. He'll do anything to get to the top, and that's the problem with Rahu. We can be blind to unethical behavior if you're in a Rahu period, and we see this problem, in business all the time. People are so keen on getting to the top. We see this all over the TV soap operas and things like that. People do anything to cheat and steal their way to the top, and ultimately get caught. But Rahu kind of can blind you to being very unethical sometimes, and so you have to be careful in a Rahu period not to do anything outside of what's right. And it's tricky because it's Rahu and it puts up smoke screens, so you have to be careful. Again, you have to caution people to be obsessive, to be careful about obsessive and addictive behavior with Rahu, because it can overtake them. I'm in a Rahu period. I have a food addiction at the moment, and I'm amazed that it's just gotten worse lately, that I will have so much energy going on in my stomach that I have to stuff all kinds of stuff in there to get it in control. And I know the problem, and I haven't solved it yet, because Rahu takes over sometimes that way. Ketu's perpetual sense of lack, not good enough, not good, moves us from moving forward. You get a lot of clients. When you look at Ketu connections, it could be a Ketu in the nakshatra, it could be the ascendant lord in Ketu's nakshatra, it could be Ketu in the first house, it could be, some strong Ketu connection in the port. I mean, they just, they're suffering because they can't, they're dealing with self-esteem problems, and you have to get them into Jack Canfield's programs and help their self-esteem. Okay, timing the nose. So obviously Rahu and Ketu are going to show up in their dashas and bhuktis. But if you learn a Vedic astrology, if you're, let's say, in your Jupiter period and Jupiter is in Rahu's nakshatra, Rahu will be the dominant energy of the dasha period. So again, there are 6 Rahu and Ketu nakshatras, and if you have your dasha lord in any of them, they could manifest like a Rahu or a Ketu period. Transits, you get Rahu, we'll have a whole class on transits of Rahu, but Rahu going through your first house can have a huge impact on your life for 18 months. Ketu going through your 7th house. So Rahu and Ketu create huge influences. And they create seesaws between doubt and confidence, between relinquishment and attachment, and they really kind of take over our lives. Okay, I'm going to pause. I'm talking. I always prepare too much material for these classes. Some of it I'm going to skip through because for those of you who are going to take the, one of the reasons we're doing a 16-week class in Rahu and Ketu is because you can spend a lifetime studying Rahu and Ketu to get to understand them. But I mentioned this already. I don't want to go over all these rules because they're kind of boring. We have 2 classes on Rahu and Ketu nakshatras. And for those of you who've taken my nakshatra classes, nakshatras are all about our mental energies. And so whenever you have Rahu or whenever you have planets going through Rahu or Ketu's nakshatras in transit, or if you have a lot of planets in Rahu and Ketu nakshatras in your chart, they bring up the Rahu and Ketu energies. I have Rahu and Mula nakshatra, which is owned by Ketu, and Ketu and Ardra nakshatra, owned by Rahu. And it's a particularly complex, I'm in the Rahu period. I'm going into Rahu Ketu next year. So you can imagine it's a particularly complex weaving in my chart. Rahu and Mula has a craving for spiritual growth. Mula is a very spiritual nakshatra. It tries to take away the material in order to move us more towards spiritual growth. I went into my Rahu period. The housing market crashed. My mortgage went up 25%. I let go of my house, which was all my wealth from 10 years, because I went underwater, and it was a particularly difficult time for me and my family. In the end, I wanted it to happen, and it did move me to a new spiritual phase of my growth and got me out of. So Mula Nakshatra has that kind of energy, and so my Rahu period is actually governed by Ketu and by Mula, and it's very kind of funny. So the nakshatras that the dashas are in can have a big influence. As I mentioned before, I think my Rahu Ketu influences make me obsessed with astrology, and a way of unlocking the past and moving forward. Ketu is stuck in the past in the 8th house. Rahu is obsessed with unlocking the past to become happy. It's kind of interesting. It's led me to a lot of light also, but it's an obsessive thing also, which I have to watch. One of the things about Rahu energy, which people don't always understand, is Rahu is connected to Kundalini energy, and either the Kundalini energy goes up and creates moksha, goes down and creates sexual enslavement and inertia. And people, Rahu inevitably, if the cure for Rahu is always getting the people into meditation and spirituality, because it will tame the Kundalini energy. But oftentimes in people's early lives, that Kundalini energy is so strong, and they get into really strong sexual obsession, and it never really satisfies their need for moksha, and so you have to kind of help people get through it. Rahu's again is connected to subconscious fears and phobias, so he's very ambitious, and you have to watch that. Rahu's the rebel. In Western astrology, he's connected to Aquarius. Uranus is connected to Aquarius, which is kind of the inventor and the rebel, the person who wants to change society. The positive side of Rahu is that he's there to change outmoded areas of society, to get rid of staleness in society. And part of the evolutionary process is that things have to change. Rahu is kind of feared in India because, if people are getting into alternative religions and not following Hinduism, then it's a threat to the traditional values. And so Rahu is really still considered quite a demon in India. In the West, I look at Rahu as being, creative and changing outmoded areas of society, which means moving beyond that which is old and not useful anymore. And societies have. The U.S. is in a Rahu period now until 2030. It's definitely going to bring a technological revolution, but there are a lot of things that the U.S. is doing that are not really good. The U.S. has been creating wars since the beginning of its lifetime. It's only 10 years in the whole history of the U.S. that we haven't been at war with something. And we've got the whole military-industrial complex trying to create war. Will Rahu be able to change that quality of society, which is not useful, as we move into a new age, or will the U.S. fall? And it's a huge issue, and there are huge forces at work now fighting between the military-industrial complex and those fighting for peace. And we're in a Rahu period. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. Rahu tempts us, off of Dharma. See, Rahu's against Dharma. Rahu does not do well in the ninth house. Rahu is considered Marna Karakasthanam. Rahu in the ninth house may create, will fight gurus, will fight non-traditional religions, and and that's why he's often, like I said, feared in India. But in the West, I mean, I'm multiply eclectic, and I love, I have a Jewish background, which I actually don't, which I enjoy at times, going to the synagogue. I actually go to church. I go to the Hindu temple. I like the Buddha. When I was in Sedona, I used to go to the Buddhist stupa. I like them all, and very eclectic in that respect. Um, but a lot of people are threatened by that, and it's kind of interesting. In modern age, it's quite interesting. Rahu is connected to the southwest. As I mentioned, Los Angeles is the center of, is the center of the southwest of the U.S. Arizona. I lived in Arizona and in Sedona, which is a very kind of Rahu place. It's a place of outcast gangsters and what, if you look at study the history of Arizona and New Mexico and the way the way we had outlaws and Indians and all that stuff. It's a natural place for Rahu, and my wife was very uncomfortable in a Rahu a town, because she's got Jupiter in the first, and she needs community and tradition, and people were way too much of an outsider. So it's kind of interesting. Rahu deals with drugs, poisons, and pharmaceuticals. Deals with foreigners. I wrote that whole article in the Almanac about immigration and the whole problem. We're in a Rahu period, and we've got this huge immigration problem, which is very difficult to solve. Rahu problems are difficult to solve. Rahu's fond of foreign travel and quest for freedom. Real positive side of Rahu, and also a negative side, is technology and biotech through Aquarius. Shatabishak nakshatra, which is connected to Rahu, is all about biotech and it's a good thing and it's a bad thing. And those of you who are alternative medicine, what's happened with modern medicine. They'll prescribe $5,000 of tests, to see and still not be able to solve your problem. But that's what we have with technology and biotech, and it's given us the internet, and it's taken away our kids from being in a relationship, since they'd rather look at their cell phone. So quite a quandary, and we've got much more of a quandary to deal with as the energy increases. So I have a section in the class on Rahu dashas and Ketu dashas. And I call it how to survive your Rahu dasha. And so Rahu, Rahu is favorable in Gemini, Taurus, if it's aspected by Jupiter, Venus, or Mercury, and it's connected to the 3rd, 6th, 10th, or the 11th houses. So that you can have a positive Rahu period. Some people have very positive Rahu periods. It can bring growth, ambition, artistic creativity, material success, unexpected opportunities for enjoyment, luxuries, all those kind of material things that that we think we want. And then at some point, if we have all those things, we suddenly realize, like, but I'm not happy. I haven't found God. I've got this big house, and I've got this huge bank account, and I've got this huge art collection, but I'm not happy. So, ultimately, Rahu wants to take us back to spirituality also, but it may give us a lot of material growth to ultimately get us to the point and realize I'm missing something. So the affirmation I have created for Rahu periods is: I convert my suffering into divine manifestation. I adapt and accept the changing nature of my karmic situation. I learn the divine wisdom from every situation. I learn detachment and understanding from ups and downs of life to understand my own inner eternal reality. The negative side of Rahu periods, if it's afflicted, if it's in Scorpio or Sagittarius, or it's connected to these houses, or it's particularly when it's afflicted by Saturn or Mars, or considered kind of dead, you get Rahu can create periods where you're constrained by forces beyond your control. Things take over. You know, you lose your job, or I lost my house at the beginning of my Rahu period. And it was kind of beyond my control. It's an unknown force that kind of takes over. You may feel victimized by an overpowering force like that, and that's that whole victim-perpetrator energy of Rahu Ketu. Rahu Ketu are connected to shadowy maneuverings. Again, shady deals. You have to be careful not to get into. Somebody comes with you an offer too good to be true in a Rahu period. Tell them to take a hike. Environmental problems created by Rahu: pollution, bad dreams, fright, manic depression, negative sides of a Rahu period. Rahu periods, when it's afflicted, tinged with dissatisfaction. It's never enough. There's never enough. It's never enough. And you ultimately, the mantra for it's never enough is that it is enough. I'm grateful. And that's Jupiter. But how many, you're in a Rahu period, you never say that. But we had a great saint saying at our house, and my wife has Rahu in the 8th house, and he said, her mantra had to be like, I am enough, I have enough, I don't need anything, because it was always like that shopping addiction, like that. So you have to kind of learn the opposite. You are enough, I am enough, I have enough. That's the mantra for Rahu. That's one of the cures for Rahu. If you get a really dark Rahu period, and people who haven't found spirituality, it leads to drugs, addictions. I'm going to travel around the world and find myself. But ultimately, Rahu doesn't find themselves obviously in drugs and addictions and foreign travel. So you've got to kind of really help people through those periods. Rahu periods can create negative Rahu periods: sorrow, frustration, depression, dejection. People in Rahu periods have to recognize boundaries. I have a problem with this one, and I say yes too easily because I want people to like me, and then I overcommit myself to things that I can't do, and I get in trouble. So having healthy boundaries is important. If you're in a Rahu period, you have to just say, no, I can't fit that in. No, my plate's too full. No, I really love you, but I can't do that, because otherwise you get overwhelmed. I'm currently kind of in that situation. Rahu periods can be psychologically intense, particularly if you got Rahu and Scorpio. It's kind of a cesspool sometimes, and you can't get a grip on it. It's shadow, it's ineffable. You can't even figure out what's going on. You have this dread about the future, and it's tough. Really bad Rahu period can lead to loss of prestige, mental anguish, theft, loss of wealth, abandonment, bereavement, disappointment. I mean, you have to have it in the wrong houses, badly afflicted. I mean, put loss of prestige. Yeah, Rahu in the 10th house can give you prestige and take it away. If it's and at the beginning of a Rahu period, you might get this great job promotion, and then suddenly you realize I'm not good enough, and you sabotage yourself, and you get fired. I mean, it happens all the time. And Rahu does that. Rahu has to be careful not to be a victim of bad company. I mean, we said Rahu, look at The Sopranos, you watch all these TV shows, and good people start hanging around with bad company, and they get dragged into jail because, they're so nice, and they don't see, they think they're helping society by this antisocial rally and maybe becoming a terrorist, and then suddenly they end up in jail. I mean, that can happen to people on this class or on this group, but it's something that does happen. People fall into bad company in Rahu. They're not clear, and periods create difficult and untreatable diseases. Sometimes weakens the immune system. Ketu periods. Here's the positive side of a Ketu period. Again, Ketu strong in Pisces, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Leo. We want to connect it to the 3rd, 6th, and 11th houses. We want it aspected by benefics, particularly Jupiter, Mercury, and Venus. Will uplift it because they are benefics, but create all their own problems. So Rahu, a good Ketu period will turn people toward astrological studies. You basically need a strong Ketu in your chart, to be involved in astrology. And Ketu is also connected to meditation. And so people who are into meditation and yoga often get into astrology, and they're all connected. Ketu's it has a deep interest in enlightenment, divine wisdom, and occult knowledge. I mean, when I had my first reading with Chakrapani in 1985, the first question I asked him was, when will I get enlightened? It was my driving Ketu force in my life. And it didn't, I wasn't conscious of that question. I didn't ask about sex or money or fame. I asked about enlightenment. That's because of my Ketu nature. And I think I had my first astrology reading in my Venus Ketu period, which was a falling apart period, where I needed Ketu's knowledge of astrology to lift me out of it. So Ketu opens the portals of hidden mysteries. That's why astrology is so valuable. It reveals deeper truths of life. It opens the third eye to deeper truths, and it creates initiations into the mysteries of existence. It can bring honor and status and fame in foreign countries. So that's the positive side of Ketu dashas. My affirmation, which is for Ketu periods, is I let go of the material and honor my search for the divine through esoteric studies, deep meditation, retreat from the world. Ketu periods, the negative side, unfavorable, connected to Gemini and Taurus. Ketu has a problem in Taurus because Taurus is the most material sign of the zodiac, and Ketu wants to find God. It doesn't want to have all this stuff, and so it's a problem. And Ketu is headless, so it doesn't like Gemini or Virgo because it doesn't think, it's intuitive, and so it gets out of balance if it thinks too much in Gemini. So Ketu aspected by the Sun, Moon, Mars, or Saturn. Ketu hates the fourth house. It's called Marika Karkasthana. It's kind of dead there. It creates problems. We don't want Ketu connected to the second, eighth, or the 12th houses. So those can all create difficult Ketu periods. What happens in a difficult Ketu period, always wanting to change direction in your life. I mentioned that you get kind of like quitting jobs, quitting relationships, moving all the time, never just feeling happy anywhere. I had a friend of mine, she was in a Ketu period, and she was driving her husband crazy. She moved every year. She was never happy wherever she moved. And it was difficult. Ketu wants to give up material attachment, which can be a problem. I mean, you get people going into a Ketu period and they say, "Oh, I want to sell everything. I'm just going to go into a cave and meditate." And it may be okay. It may be part of their life purpose, but Ketu could be out of balance there. Ketu can take away what it gives in its 7 years. So you could, like Rahu, it can give a lot of material abundance sometimes, and then it will take it away. I had a Saturn Ketu period I was running, or was actually, it was a Ketu period. I think it was Moon Saturn Ketu, and I won $25,000 in the City Bag contest, which was one in 300 million chances of winning that kind of a first place in a contest. And the money was badly needed for some difficult times that I went through, and it was a gift. But it vanished really quickly. It was like, and that's that's what kind of Ketu does. It kind of like can do that. Ketu dwells on the mistakes of the past too much. Again, we have to remember that was then, this is now. You have to let go of what happened before. You're not the same person you were 20 years ago, and you can't stay stuck in what happened to you 20 years ago, although most of us do. Ketu can create hanging out with undesirable people. Again, you got to watch out for people on the other side of the tracks when you're in a Rahu Ketu period. You may be attracted to their charisma, and so I watch a lot of spy stuff. You see this happening all the time, where these spies kind of get these innocent people involved in things, and then their lives are ruined. Spies are obviously, totally connected to Rahu. But it's just kind of this, energy. You have to be careful who you hang out with. Ketu periods create problems with mysterious diseases too. I don't want to. I can't do everything, and I have to save my voice actually. We'll go over Ketu aspects in the class. Material is endless. one of the things that we're going to do is we need to kind of develop key phrases for signs, because one of the things that you have to remember to memorize at some point is that you see Rahu in Aries or you see Rahu in the ninth house. You have to remember a couple key words to kind of immediately be able to say something. So I put together kind of a guide to Rahu and Ketu by sign, and we actually need to flesh this out. So I have a list here, but we really kind of need to, and it makes sense. Rahu and Cancer. Cancer is about the fourth house, the house of emotions. So we have Ketu and Rahu and Cancer is unusual or shadowed emotions. Ketu in Cancer is either psychic, connected to the moon, which is the emotional psychic planet also, or psychotic. Ketu out of balance, afflicted is going to be. So we have to learn the dark and the light sides of all of these. And then we have to spend a lot of time looking at the houses and the karmic axes, and a lot of books on this. I'm trying to go deeper with it, but it gets very complicated. And but to unravel your mask and the things that are blocking you with Rahu and Ketu, you have to understand the signs and the houses and the nakshatras and the planetary conjunctions and all the other associations. And then you have to kind of, once you translate it, then you have to heal it, which is what we have to eventually move to. And I mentioned, we'll cover Rahu and Ketu are different in different types of houses. The Artha houses, which are connected to wealth, mean that we have a need to, we've incarnated because we have a need to develop security around material existence. I have Rahu in the second house, and that's true. And so it can show us some of our purpose in the types of houses that Rahu and Ketu are in. We'll go over that in the course. I've added a couple classes on Rahu and relationship and health and money because, obviously those are things that everybody wants to know about. And I've taught classes on relationship and money, and I haven't taught a health class yet, but I'm very interested in Ayurvedic astrology. And I thought it's important for us to study these things a little bit more. I like to look at, one of the things that I'm fascinated by is Rahu and Ketu on the 1-7 axis, because that means, our purpose, our core issues in life are about relationship. And Rahu in the first can be selfish and egocentric, and they often, I call it the rock star and the fan syndrome. You often find these rock stars with Rahu in the first house. They're totally charismatic, and they have to attract people with Ketu in the seventh who are devotees and fans, otherwise the relationships don't work, because there's no room for two Rahu people in a relationship. They both want attention. And so you need a Rahu Ketu relationship. You need a rock star and a fan. And so it's kind of fascinating. Rahu and Ketu always, in the first and seventh, always create difficult sexual intrigues and difficult relationship things. And you have to look at the Nakshatras chart, of course, D7 and everything. But we'll play with that a little bit. Rahu and Ketu in health. I'm kind of adding this to the class now. Rahu, Ketu cover difficult diseases, group contagious diseases like AIDS or Ebola. Rahu weakens the immune system, causes problems with poisons, pollutions, and radiations. Rahu can lead to cancer, which is a huge problem in our society. Parasites, drug usage, and usually when Rahu is connected to Mars or Saturn and in the wrong sign and in the wrong house, that's when you get these more serious health problems happening. I mean, you shouldn't think I've got, worry about things if you don't have them in your natal chart. Rahu and Ketu, again, a psychological imbalance, mass catastrophe, infectious disease, blood disorders. People can be prone to surgery, brain disease, things like neuromuscular disorders. I think, look at Michael, the guy who developed muscular MS, Michael Fox. I think he has Ketu in the first house. Um, that's the type of thing that Ketu can do sometimes. Again, it depends on what sign it's in. I think he developed that disease when he went into his Ketu period. You shouldn't fear the worst in your chart, and that's never a good thing. Transits, we'll have a section on transits in the class. Rahu and Ketu take 18 and a half months to go through a sign of the zodiac. It's interesting when they go into the new sign, which is March 7th, in the me node, and March 23rd in the true node. They immediately have an impact. And now that they're in transition at the edge of the sign, I wrote an article on my blog about this. There's this edginess in life with Rahu on the edge, anxious, paranoid, constrained forces beyond our controls, victimized, nightmares. Man, there's this edginess going on, particularly if you have planet, the sun or the moon in Cancer. 0 to 2 degrees Cancer is 0 to 2 degrees. Pisces is 0 to 2 degrees Scorpio because of the trinal relationship. So there's a lot of edginess. Or if you're in a Rahu period, you're going to feel edgy. Or if you're ruled by Aquarius, you're going to feel edgy. Ketu, on the edge wants to change everything in his life, wants to give up material attachments, feels disillusioned, has emotional knots to unravel, and feels unsettled and emotional distortion. So, very kind of powerful. Finances, we'll do a section. Ketu and Rahu, Ketu takes away and Rahu gives, but, Rahu also takes away. And I told you the story, sometimes Ketu can give you all this money, but you don't care. I mean, my wife was jumping up all and down when we won first prize in this contest, and I didn't care. I was, Ketu. I was not interested in the money. I was interested in moksha. It was very funny. So sometimes Ketu can give you a lot of money and you don't care about it, and Rahu can give you a lot of money too. And in a sense, they both kind of give and take away to remind you that it's all illusion. Politics. I'm not going to do too much with this, but there's case studies of politician charts. They almost always have Rahu Sun or Rahu Moon conjunctions. Rahu Sun craves fame and attention. What do politicians want? They want to be in the limelight. They want attention. They want people to love them. Maybe they don't love themselves inside. So it's very, very interesting with Rahu and Ketu in politics. And then healing, we'll learn traditional mantras for healing Ketu. If you're in a Rahu period, you need Durga mantras starting on a Saturday during a waxing moon. Om Dam Durgaye Namaha. You can listen to Durga Chalisa. Ketu, you need Om Ganeshaya Namaha starting on a Thursday during a waxing moon. And Rahu and Ketu actually are very easy to appease with mantras. Then we'll learn some Western psychological techniques for healing Rahu and Ketu. Which one is just being authentic, telling the truth, letting your secrets out, finding a way to kind of let go of this whole mask. And Ketu, has to kind of loosen up and get involved in more meditation and embrace the physical world and not escape from it. So very, very powerful. We'll also look at Rahu and Ketu in the Varga charts. Again, you may not have a problem in your natal chart with Rahu and Ketu, and you think, oh, I've got this perfect placement. I've got Rahu in the third, and it's in Aquarius, and there's no malefic aspects, and it's just a wonderful time. And then all of your Varga charts, you've got Rahu in the 12th, and Rahu in the 8th, and Rahu in Scorpio, and deep down you have a lot of problems in the Varga chart, so we have to look at that. So I am going to, I could go on forever. I have to save my voice. I have another class at 12, for those of you in my transit class. I am going to open it up for questions. I am going to encourage you, I have a, for those of you who know me, I mean, I'm not getting wealthy teaching astrology. I mean, it's a passion, it's an obsession. It's definitely the highest calling of my dharma. and you know, I just have to do it. And my classes are very reasonable. I think the $249 fee comes out. 16 classes is about $16 a class, if I've got that right. What is it? 249 divided by 16. I don't know if that's right. It's about right. It's about $15 a class. I mean, it's $15.50 a class. So I'm not getting rich on these classes, and I just love doing this. It takes an enormous amount of time to, and I just have to do them. So I do have an early bird special through the end of Monday on my website at appliedvedicastrology.com, and you'll get a. I'm hoping. I actually have 10 people signed up in the class so far, which is astounding. Not astounding. My classes often get 15 or 20 people in them, but I don't, because I tried to keep them personal. I try to keep them 20 or less. Otherwise, I get into a problem. I'm trying to unmute you here. I'm going to try to take questions here, and it's hard for me. And I see, Laura. Okay, so here are questions. Laura Berry just said thank you. Kathleen had a question. Somebody asked about Bitcoin and Rahu and Ketu. I am a financial astrologer. I have the Bitcoin chart. The Bitcoin chart rectified is a satirizing commodity. I don't think the problem is it's satirizing. So Jupiter's in the 12th in Scorpio, and Saturn's in Sagittarius now, and then Ketu is going into Sagittarius. So I think Saturn Ketu is not going to help Bitcoin this year. I think when Saturn gets out of Sag and goes into Capricorn and is not afflicting Sagittarius, when Jupiter goes into Sagittarius in November, that Bitcoin will come alive again. But I've covered in my newsletter every day, and I've been, you know, it's not an investment. It's probably going to go to $1,800. Kathleen has a question about Kathleen. You know, there are a lot of things. Okay, if you read my books and if you study with me, I always say that spirituality kind of is the best anecdote for Rahu and Ketu. So people who meditate, I mean, I can wake up in the morning with my debilitated moon, and I can feel, you know, kind of emotional mess. But by the time I do all my meditation and sadhana and yoga, I'm fine. So you don't have to, you know, you might, you know, sometimes people feel emotionally messed up with Rahu going over their moon, but if you're a spiritual person, it's fine. And again, there's, I think people are drawn to addiction with Rahu. I think people who don't get on the spiritual path have problems with drugs in their early life with Rahu. And you know, you look at teenagers' charts going through a Rahu period, they haven't found spirituality. They're the ones that get into drugs. You know, people who are mature, you know, don't forget Rahu matures at age 42. So, you know, we're in our 40s and 50s. You know, Rahu is not causing the problems it would cause in our youth. So I wouldn't worry about any of those things. I'm not saying that you're going to go nuts with Rahu going over your, you know, moon. I think you know, it'll be a short period of time. It may just create a lot of emotional ups and downs that you can handle with yoga and meditation. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to unmute you, which so if you need to ask any questions now, you should be able to unmute your mic and ask questions. You don't have to do them one at a time. And if you don't have any questions, this presentation went very fast, and there's a lot of, you know, I was trying to give you, I said at the beginning, this is an ocean in a drop. So I was trying to give you a taste of some of the areas that the whole class would cover. I mean, obviously, we have to go through everything slowly, and we have to use case studies, and we have to not put you on Jyotish overload. My first class is the ocean in a drop, so it's Jyotish overload, and you can listen to the class again. You'll get a link so that it will show up, and you can watch it again. There's a lot of material here. We can study Rahu and Ketu for a lifetime, but the key is that you can really unlock your karmic destiny and heal deep patterns if you are willing to go really deep and look at your patterns and to unravel them and to come out of the secret energies of Rahu and move toward the truth. And it's very powerful. I probably incorporate in my healing class. I'm going to incorporate Catherine Ponder's work on the dynamics of healing, and we do a lot of healing work. So questions?
I have a question.
Yes, Kathleen.
Yes, that's Kathleen. One, I wanted to thank you so much for your blog. You have no idea how much you've helped me. I totally look forward to it every day. I don't know how you nail what's going on emotionally, but you do. So I'm just impressed, and I can't thank you enough. Please don't stop, because you help me every single day of my life. And so thank you for that. This has to do with my question has to do with the deeper issue about the soul and Rahu and Ketu. I feel like I know, from studying this enough, I know of a certain destiny. I have in my Rishi chart, I have Rahu in the 6th house, in Capricorn, and so I'm some kind of warrior fighting for a cause, and I'm in the middle of this great cosmic drama right now about being this warrior. But my soul, or what I feel like, and it could be just the Ketu and the 12th, I just want peace and love and the peace of God, but yet I'm have to fight this cosmic battle. And so I feel like what my soul truly wants and what my Rahu wants are at odds. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, they're always Capricorn. Capricorn with Rahu and Capricorn. Are the battles happening at work at all by any chance, or?
Well, I'm 66, so I should be retired, but I'm about to come out of retirement to fight. I'm fighting this battle, and it's big, and it could make me homeless, and I could lose these benefits, but I feel like on a soul level that I have to speak up and help all seniors. So it's a very I've been told that this is what I've come here to do from a number of Vedic astrologers. So I'm being this warrior in something that I'm destined to be in, but
I just lost you. We have lost Kathleen. I think hopefully she'll come back on. We have lost her. Well, if she listens to the tape, again, there are a lot of other things I would like to look at in the chart to answer that question, and it's a little bit out of context. But yeah, I mean, certainly it can involve deep karmic battles sometimes. Sixth house is always about fighting for your rights, and ultimately you kind of can win, but it's never easy. 6th house, battles, lawsuits, fighting with people at work, they're never easy to. Again, I would have to see the whole chart to really get a better idea of what's really going on and what dasha period you're running and what chara dasha period you're running. Okay, other questions? I think I did unmute you all. Okay, so you should be able to unmute yourselves. Kathleen, you're back?
Yes, I'm back. This has more to do with, I didn't necessarily want you to talk about my chart in particular, but about, have you seen this conflict that, do you think the soul is basically just light, and then these, like you said, the planets are these like puppeteers. So I'm being puppeteered into doing some battle when my soul just wants peace. That's more of what I'm getting at.
Yeah, no, I think I understand the conflict. I mean, when I have had 6th house fights to do and I haven't wanted to do them, sometimes I have retreated and not done them and then regretted that I haven't fought. You don't want to get into that situation. at the same time, is it worth it? Is it?
Yes, but it's too late. I mean, I'm in it. I don't think there's any retreat, to be quite
Okay,
honest. But
if you're in it, then just give it 100% and just kind of, whatever happens, happens, because it's just, and I think it's when you give 100% in those situations, whether you win or lose, you kind of feel like, I did my best. I fought for justice. I fought for my rights, and I do feel like that's important, and so if you're in it, go with it, give it 100%, enjoy it, and know that there's no I think when we do good things, God takes care of us. So let go of the fears. I mean, if you're going to end up homeless, somebody will take care of you if you're homeless. I mean, you have to remember that you're, the divine is taking care of you, and that we shouldn't fear the worst.
well, I think it's very much like that Nike commercial with that NFL player. It's like, believe in something.
Okay, we lost. Okay.
Yes, I feel like it's the NFL player, that Nike commercial. Believe in something, even if it costs you everything. That's what I feel like I'm in.
Yeah, it's kind of a martyr complex, and I suppose that can be a little bit K2 in the 12th. Martyrdom is, again, we always have to evaluate martyrdom. I mean, the question is, I mean, are you in a Rahu or Ketu period?
I'm in a Mercury-Venus dasha, Chomei.
Okay. So you're Leo rising, which you're kind of a Kshatriya anyway.
And I think it has to do with Maga. I was told that my ultimate destiny is with help, ancestors. And my son is in Maga, very early in Maga. So I was
Right.
told that has to do with,
Ancestors. Yeah, Maga has a lot of leadership qualities also. And often those people, have important. Leo always has kind of a leadership role to play anyway. And Maga particularly can get elevated in leadership. So, I mean, if you have that in your natal chart, you may have to be, you can there's always these stories about the reluctant warriors. They sometimes, all these great people that have done great things, Churchill and people who rose up against Hitler and all these things, it's never easy, and you just have to do it sometimes. And it's just, if you really are a Kshatriya with sun and with sun we'd have to look at that in other parts of the chart. Then the Kshatriya has to fight for justice. It's just it is part of your dharma. Again, I don't know your chart.
I didn't mean to make this personal. I was trying to get at, do other people feel like their soul is this love and light, yet their Rahu is making them do something at odds with that.
Yeah, I don't know if, I mean, you're right. I mean, there are forces that sometimes take us, that are beyond our control, like, Rahu periods. You're not in a Rahu period. It's kind of like, you don't have Rahu going over your ascendant lord.
Going over my moon, though, and Uranus, very soon.
Okay, so Uranus will certainly do it, but yeah, Rahu Uranus is definitely fighting for causes. So, yeah, I mean, I think I'm trying to come up with an answer here. There's just this underlying energy. I think it's I have not fought when I needed to fight, and I don't know if I regretted it or not. What for me it was that the tumult was the tumult was blocking my peace, and it was better for me to give up $150,000 in an unjust cause than to kind of spend years in courts and with lawyers. And in doing that, I actually was able to move on with my life, personal situation, but
here I'm fighting for a an individual, seniors. It's a personal fight, but it has a much larger, implications, and this is for seniors in general, becoming a champion and advocate for seniors.
Right. I'm also just wondering if there are other people that you can enlist in this battle that can take it
I've
up.
tried, and I have been there's like some karmic block. I've tried to do that, and it's been completely blocked. And the only thing that I can ascertain is that it's my battle that I have to fight.
Right. If you feel that deeply inside, and because you are Leo, and I think go with it. You have to make that decision deep inside. But yeah, there is sometimes there is this kind of compelling energy, and sounds like you're feeling that.
Well, it's I'm in it, and all I can do is like go through it. I mean, it's deeply karmic. It feels that way, and I mean, I'm obviously with Rahu going over my moon. This is going to be and Uranus. This is going to be make or break. I've had readings done with Joni Patrice said, all these fifth house planets, like this is my moment where I'm doing what I came here to do. But as I said, I'm not trying to make this about my personal circumstances. I'm trying to look at deeper issues that you've encountered with what the soul is and what the puppeteers are making them do. It was a bigger issue.
If I were doing your chart, I would look at your Karakamsha Rashi chart, which really is about the soul's purpose, and that's a Jaimini chart. And I can see sometimes you can see all kinds of very specific things in there, and that's where I would go. And I don't have that. I can't see that.
So what numbers are those? What Varga numbers are those?
It's not a Varga chart. It's a chart where you take the Atmakarka, which is the planet governing the soul, and you rotate it to the sign connected to the first house to your rising sign, and then you have to rotate. There's a whole formula for rotating it, but okay. It's a rotated Navamsha chart imposed on the Rashi chart. So it's the soul's purpose in the material world. And I often find the deepest answers for the soul in that chart. I've got in that chart I've got Gemini rising with Jupiter and Ketu in the first. Jyotish education. Mercury in the ninth, spiritual Jyotish education. But if you looked at my if you looked at my natal chart, you wouldn't see it. But it's absolutely all over in the life purpose chart.
And you can do a reading specifically for that?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make this personal. I was trying to look at a bigger issue.
Okay, great, thank you. Anybody else have a question? I'm going to have to get ready for my next class at 12, which is unbelievable. Is Ketu connected to adoption? Sometimes. Sometimes Ketu be connected to adoption. I do not do a lot of family charts. There's this whole thing about step families, which I think are often connected to Ketu. And so that could bring in adoption. But I do have some books on it. I can't remember everything off the top of my head. Alicia, I don't understand your question. Maybe inquiries with AARP. That was a suggestion for Kathleen that maybe AARP has a legal defense fund to support the seniors that you're fighting for and get some aid from them. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm not seeing anything else. Can I take that course? I'm quite new to it. Okay, so people who are new to Vedic astrology can take my class. I'm trying to create a series of classes now that are inner classes. There's a lot of psychology. Rahu and Ketu. I mean, if you understand houses and signs and nakshatras on a very basic level, or if you're willing to do a little additional work, you can take the class. Because basically, this is a two-planet on two planets for 16 weeks, and so there's not. There'll be some once in a while. There'll be some advanced thing that we might jump into, but for the most part, I think you'll be able to handle it, Christina. So you're welcome to be in the class. Anybody can email me privately about Barry at Applied Vedic Astrology if they have any questions. sometimes people need payment programs. Usually payment programs could go on people's credit cards. I sometimes don't like to have to chase people with payments, but I am willing to do that. I totally understand people's needs and budgets, and we are living in a crazy world at the moment. Okay, so thank you for participating in today's webinar. I do periodically offer these. I am teaching a class starting in May called Secrets of the Houses, second edition. I'm adding a lot of material to a course that I've taught before. I do have a lot of classes that are canned on my website. If you look under courses, that you can watch at your own speed. If you want a live class where you get interaction with me, this is the next live class coming up. The next live class coming up after that is in May. It's called Secret of the Houses. It's about all the houses in Vedic astrology, and it's very in-depth. I'm writing a book connected to it. And if you've read my Blind Spots book, you know there's a 70-page section on Secrets of the Houses in there, which is patient. So I will get ready. Jamie's back. Jamie, do you want to say anything? I've been trying to get Jamie to speak for the beginning of the class. Jamie's one of my students, and she's on the mic now. So, Jamie, do you want to talk?
Oh, sure. Thanks for your patience there. I'm sorry I had some audio and Wi-Fi trouble earlier, but I just wanted to pop in and kind of give a kudos to Barry, for your classes and, all of your hard work and everything that you do, because I know how much it takes to put these courses together. And I've been a student of Barry's for, gosh, I think it's going on about, at least 2 years now. And I go from class to class, and I'm always picking up so much value and little nuggets with everything that he puts together. And I just appreciate even the outside articles that you send us, the direction, that you point us in. I've had a few little mini readings, with Barry too. And, he's referred me, to really good resources, because I've been on this spiritual path for a number of years and trying to find answers, even in other, modes of astrology. And so I was so glad to find Barry, because he goes outside of the box. Even just today, I've been studying and I've read books on Rahu and Ketu too. And I'm telling you, this morning I'm just writing down a copious amount of notes, because there's stuff in here, this material that's not out there, in mainstream. And that's what I always get as far as value from Barry's classes. So I just wanted to let you know and tell everybody too, I appreciate Barry as my teacher and guru here, and the value is just absolutely incredible. And what I learned, through the charts, and even just going through everyone else's chart and looking at my own and comparing, experiences. Other teachers will focus on like famous people, celebrities, and I know Barry mentioned Hitler today, or maybe they'll look at Princess Diana's chart, or Elvis or something, and I mean that's still helpful, but I just find that Barry's real, and he brings in our charts too, and it's just incredibly helpful for me to see what's going on, so I can basically put air back in my flat tires, in my spiritual flat tires. So that's what I was just going to say, Barry, that I appreciate you, I appreciate the work that you put in, the value, the tremendous value that you give to us, and that you're also there. If I have questions, I can send you an email and you'll respond to me. It's not just like I sign up for a course and then the teacher or professor ghosts you. So just kind of having that support has been amazing, and I'm really looking forward to the rest of this course and the upcoming courses you've got planned. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jamie. That was very kind of you. I mean, it's very funny being in a Rahu period, and then which is run by Ketu. I'm kind of a humble nobody deep down, and that I have to get out there because that's what Rahu has to do. So I'm always juggling, like self-promotion and self-deprecation. I'm not good enough. and but that's the truth of the matter is, my classes are very good, and it's definitely my highest purpose in life. I do feel like this course is going to be kind of earth-shattering. In developing this talk this week, I was just I had this earth-shattering experience about my deepest, darkest Rahu energies, that are covering up my whole being, and I'm hoping that having the courage to release them and share them and change and get to the truth is an earth-shattering experience. And I hope that for any of those who choose to take this course and my course, that will continue to happen. So I look forward to spending time with many of you again. There'll be another sneak preview for Secrets of the Houses, probably in a month. I haven't scheduled it yet, but exciting material there too. I will see you. Have a great Saturday, and enjoy. Take care.